30,000 feet above the ground, a passenger tries to wrench open an airplane door. Panic. But the door is sealed by a force no human can overcome. The truth about what everyone gets wrong about planes is stranger and more vital than most people imagine. Here is what really stops these doors from ever opening in flight, and what could happen if that protection failed. Cruising at 30,000 feet, a jet moves through air that is only about 1/3 as dense as the atmosphere at sea level. This thin air means the wings and fuselage face far less resistance, so the engines can push the plane much faster for the same amount of effort. Jet engines themselves are built to thrive in these conditions. At these heights, outside temperatures drop to around -50 degrees Celsius, which helps the turbines run more efficiently. Flying high also lets pilots steer clear of most storms and turbulence, keeping flights smoother and more reliable. For airlines, the payoff is clear: faster trips, lower fuel bills, and fewer weather delays. The high-altitude environment is not just about speed, it is about making long flights practical, comfortable, and economical. But this thin, cold air creates a new challenge inside the cabin, one that shapes every other part of the flying experience. At 30,000 feet, the air outside is so thin your body cannot get enough oxygen to survive. At this altitude, the partial pressure of oxygen drops to about 1/4 of what you breathe at sea level. Without pressurization, most people would lose consciousness in less than 3 minutes, long before help could arrive. To keep everyone safe, the cabin is kept at the equivalent of 6,000 to 8,000 feet. Breathing is still comfortable for most healthy adults at that cabin altitude. This is possible because air is constantly pumped in from the jet engine's compressors. That process is called bleed air. Pressurization makes the difference. An aviation physiologist explains that at cruise, the oxygen your body actually senses is only around 1/4 of sea level. So, if pressurization is lost, many people will be unconscious within around 3 minutes without oxygen. Pressurization is not just a comfort feature. It is a life-saving engineering solution. Airliner doors are not just slabs of metal on hinges. Their secret is geometry. Each main door is shaped so the inside edge is wider than the opening itself. The door must move inward before it can swing out, like a cork wedged in a bottle. Once the plane is pressurized, higher pressure inside the cabin pushes the door firmly into its frame. It becomes an airtight seal held in place by physics, not just by locks or latches. At cruising altitude, the cabin pressure sits around 77 kilopascals, while outside it drops to only about 1/3 of that. That higher inside pressure produces an enormous inward force. No human can pull a door inward against that differential. As long as the cabin is pressurized, no one can move that door inward. The numbers behind this seal are staggering, but the geometry is what makes the door effectively unbreakable by hand. On a Boeing 737, the main passenger door is shaped to move inward first. It is pressed tight against its frame by the force of cabin air. At cruising altitude, the difference in pressure between the inside and the outside creates an invisible wall. No person can break it. The numbers tell the story. The cabin is about 77 kilopascals. The outside air is less than 1/3 of that. This pressure acts across the door's surface, which is roughly 1.5 square meters. Multiply it out and the result is staggering. The door is held shut by the equivalent of more than 8,000 kilograms. That is like trying to pull a city bus with your bare hands. A Boeing mechanic says the door has to move inward before it can swing out. At cruise, the pressure difference can act like roughly 9,000 kilograms pushing the door into the fuselage. No human, no matter how determined, could budge it even an inch. The design is absolute. At altitude, the door is not just locked, it is pinned shut by physics itself. A plane door opened during approach. It was a rare event. On May 26, 2023, an Asiana Airlines Airbus descended toward Daegu. At about 700 feet above the ground, a passenger in the exit row grabbed the emergency handle and forced the door open. The aircraft was in final approach, with cabin pressure nearly matching the outside air. This narrow window allowed the plug-type exit to move inward and swing out. That movement is impossible at cruise altitude. 12 people were hospitalized for breathing difficulties and shock. Everyone survived. Xi'an's spokesperson confirmed the door opened only because the pressure difference had faded during descent. The aircraft landed safely within 1 minute. On the ground, the real danger comes from emergency slides. When a door is opened and the slide is armed, compressed gas launches the slide with a force of about 200 pounds, a blast strong enough to knock down a grown adult in an instant. Ground crews have been injured worldwide by slides firing unexpectedly. Airlines now use warning placards, barrier straps, and extra crew checks to prevent accidental deployments. One flight attendant explains that in flight, doors stay shut. On the ground, we watch the slides. They are the real hazard. Every time you board, pressurized doors hold back the sky itself. Real safety comes not from fear, but from physics. Air travel's biggest risk is not altitude, it is misunderstanding. Fly informed.